little more. There we go. It's just a hair after 3 o'clock, February the 26th. The Agriculture and Natural Resources Subcommittee is now in session. If you would, Mr. Clerk, prepare the apparatus for us to log in and let everyone log in, and then take the roll. Hey. Well, does anybody have a joke to tell?
I got one to tell that ain't working. It still ain't working. Let me try this. Well, there we go. That's magic. We need stylish pens and get to do that.
There we go. There we go. Now, Mr. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have 9 members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you for that. And if you would, please stand. And Representative Shaw, if you would, lead us in the prayer. Since you got close to the Lord right there, we'll let you lead us in the prayer. And then the pledge.
If could we pray, Father, we thank you today for the good graces of this day. Thank you for being our Father. God, we know as our Father, that means we have a relationship with you. And because you are in heaven, heaven has all we need. And God, we pray that your kingdom would come to this earth, that we all might be blessed because you've sent your son, Jesus, to save us all. Bless this committee, bless our leader, bless those who are sharing today with us and all of our company. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we're getting started, do we have any personal orders this morning or this afternoon? Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to welcome my aunt, Carolyn Joy, who's visiting from Bolivar, Tennessee, coming to Ag Committee today. I just want to appreciate you. And we have a connection with Representative Shaw. And so I just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I just wanted to share something.
Go ahead.
And just because it's the last day of Black History Month, before the end of Black History Month, our last time meeting, I want to just share a quote from Fannie Lou Hamer, who's a civil rights activist and leader in the farm worker movement. Ms. Fannie Lou Hamer said, when you've got 400 quarts of greens and gumbo, soup canned for the winter, nobody can push you around or tell you what to do or say. And so Ms. Hamer believed that people should be able to grow their own food, to be free and independent. She wanted to empower Black farmers and sharecroppers who had been taken advantage of by white landowners. Hamer said the time has come now when we're going to have to get what we need ourselves. And so I just want to honor one of our ancestors, Fannie Lou Hamer. Thank you.
Representative Idle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to welcome my daughter, Tess, is here from Chattanooga for the TBR SOAR event this evening. So Tess, just stand up. Thank you.
Good to see you here. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an announcement. Tennessee Nuclear and Innovative Energy Day on the Hill is scheduled for April 9th. You all should be getting an email from the East Tennessee Economic Council announcing such. They're pulling it together this year. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Tyler, do you have something for us today?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today's words of wisdom come from a gentleman who owns 2 theme parks, Walt Disney. All your dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. Y'all have a great day.
That he is. Now, Seeing no other personal orders, a couple of weeks ago, we announced that we'd be having some different people on the committee that would be presenting for their district. And I believe today we have Representative Fritz is going to give us a little bit of a tour of his district. So Representative Fritz, you are recognized for a couple of minutes. Now, don't be like a Baptist preacher and take 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's just move on to the next slide. I represent House District 32. We are the convergence of transportation, commerce, and nuclear, the nucleus of America's energy production, because we're situated at the intersection of Interstate 75 and 40 and the Clinch and the Tennessee. The next couple slides while we're getting that moved, you'll see that we're going to try to talk a little bit about the topography of the region and a little bit of the history. Thank you. If we could go back just one, please. Thank you so much. And so you'll see that mess of arrows I've got pointing there, and I won't read through all of those, but Mount Roosevelt Fire Tower is just about 2,000 foot above sea level. And then you come down to Watts Bar Lake, and it's about 750 foot above sea level. So it gives you a good idea of the topography of my district. It is a convergence of commerce. I mentioned the Clinch and the Tennessee. It's also a convergence of the Clinch and Emory rivers and Interstate 40 and 75. Municipalities you see listed there, and they've got their school colors pointing to each one of those towns. Next slide. Loudoun County and Lenoir City specifically. Lenoir City is kind of the city between the dams. So you've got Melton Hill Dam on one side and Fort Loudoun Dam on the other. You've got the build dates for each one of those, 1940 to 43 for Fort Loudoun and 60 to 63 on Melton Hill. You've got the lock sizes for those. I won't read all that to you. And you see the elevation again, so that as you step down through the Tennessee River system, you can see that Fort Loudoun Lake's about 812 to 813 foot. And I just mentioned that Watts Bar was 750. Melton Hill, again, at 703 to 709. And then very important thing, because I think we're the energy capital of the world in many ways. And so for hydroelectric power, you see that there's 155 megawatts of generating capacity at Fort Loudoun and 79 megawatts at Melton Hill. That's important. And that is renewable energy by any definition because it's water. Tellico Dam on the Little Tennessee River is just across. It's in Lowell's district. So we won't talk a whole lot about that one. And then Watts Bar Lake is a big part of my district, and there's 722 miles of shoreline along all of Watts Bar Lake. Growth and balance is a big thing, Mr. Chairman, in Loudoun County, because Lenoir City is probably one of the fastest growing municipalities in the state. They've got the 5th largest municipal electric provider there with LCUB. And a big thing in my district, and especially around the lakes, of course, is waterfront living and recreation. Next slide, please. It is a gateway to the frontier. So that photograph you see at the top, there's Kingston. Somewhere around 1792, they started building Fort Southwest Point there. And the water that you see at the top right of that is the Clinch River. You can't see it on the left, but that would be the Tennessee. So it was situated to be at a strategic position there. You know, Tennessee's had 4 capitals. Kingston was one of those capitals for one day. There was a Civil War battle, the Battle of Kingston in 1863. The Confederate cavalry come up to Kingston and found a larger Union force than what they expected and moved back into position with Longstreet west of there. Kingston Steam Plant, again, energy district. Built between 51 and 54, has 9 units and 1,400 megawatts of generating capacity, 10 billion kilowatt hours per year. That's impressive, and that's coal-fired right now. Rockwood, founded in 1868 by John Wilder, a geologist. What you see at the bottom left there, that photograph is Roan Iron Company, where you had a Confederate and a Union soldier come together and start mass producing iron south of the Ohio River. It's first place that happened. That was in Rockwood. Very bottom at the 6 o'clock position, you'll see those what we would call those 2 towers, and there's several towers there. That is the Kingston Steam Plant. Those stacks are about 1,100 feet tall. That was the 2nd generation of emissions from the Kingston Steam Plant. Photograph you see in the middle is reported to have been that capital for one day in Kingston, Tennessee. And then those on the right, you see the Temperance Building. Harriman is the city that Temperance built. and then the old state capitol there, or the old county seat rather, there in Kingston to the right. Oak Ridge is the last entry, and it became a city in 1942. Next slide. I'm speaking as fast as I can, Mr. Chairman. In 1942, the communities of Wheat, Robertsville, Scarborough, Elza, Bethel, and some others were combined under the then Manhattan Project, and it became the secret city. For a long time, Oak Ridge was considered the energy capital of the world. We've had an ongoing over the years. I think Houston, Texas claims that now based on the petrochemical industry. But certainly uranium's a mighty technology. I remember when I was a little boy, I remember looking at a World Book encyclopedia, and I'm dating myself just a little bit. And it was a nuclear submarine there, and they showed that nuclear submarine with a piece of uranium about the size of a lemon. Now, that's only just for proportionality and consideration. That's not the way they work. But that it could go around the world like 20 times on the fuel the size of a lemon. Uranium is our answer in the future, I think. We have an Oak Ridge advantage in my district. And so all things uranium technology and uranium manufacturing technology are centered in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I share Oak Ridge with Rep. Scarborough. You'll see some of the companies located there, both Oak Ridge National Lab and the Y-12 National Security Complex. Roane, as well as Loudoun, Morgan, and Knox County feed a workforce of competent nuclear workers into that area. And I've already announced that on April 9th, we'll be having our second Nuclear and Innovative Energy Day on the Hill. Innovation and a community culture that supports such. So the photograph you see at the bottom, those are the Calyatron girls of the 1940s. Those are the young ladies that come and kept the dial and the needle in between two positions to separate the isotope of U-238 from U-235. That material was then transported in suitcases chained to men's arms by train to Los Alamos, New Mexico, where that material was converted into Little Boy. That is the device that was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. Next slide. And last thing, just to talk a little bit about that. I learned in manufacturing and the nuclear industry and how it applies to us, Mr. Chairman, that most capability platforms are like a three-legged stool. They're all made up of place, process, and people. And I would offer that House District 32 has all of those. And with the topography we've been blessed with for agriculture, for industrial, recreational, and nuclear technology, it's a great place to live. I'm proud to get to represent those folks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Representative Fritz. I do believe you may be the smartest guy on the panel today. But thank you so much for that and for what your district has contributed to, not just this state, but to this country over the years. With that, we will be getting right into the calendar. And first on our list, we have House Bill 125 by Chairman Haston. If we have a motion, we have a second, and you are properly before the committee. Thank you for those housekeeping. Do you pick up stuff around the house good?
No, I like to take care of my friend Representative Shaw there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
You're
sorry,
good. You're
missed
properly
that.
before the committee.
House Bill 125 simply increases the local. Let me back up a second. Currently, the match requirements for the local parks and recreation grant program is 50% state, 50% local. House Bill 125 would simply decrease the local match requirement to 25% for at-risk and distressed counties. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Chairman Haston? I just appreciate you bringing this. I know last year you and I worked on this a little bit and we didn't get the funding we need. Hopefully we've got the funding going forward this year. So thank you for that. Seeing no questions, we'll be voting to send House Bill 125 to full committee. If you would, if you're in favor of it, vote yes. If you're against it, vote no. Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, we have 8 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman of the Committee.
On to full committee. House Bill 199 by Representative Reeves has been asked to be rolled 1 week. So without objection, rolled 1 week. Number 3 on the list is House Bill 896 by Chairman Todd. Chairman Todd.
Motion.
We have a motion. We have a second. You are properly recognized and before the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the Sound Science and Regulation Acts,
And it provides that any state agency that proposes or finalizes a regulatory action such as regulation, rule, standard, public notice, or health-based guidance level for a substance, mixture, or chemical related to drinking water, water pollution control, hazardous substances, or contaminated site remediation, air quality, or solid and hazardous waste handling must base its decision on the best available science. Further, with respect to regulatory actions pertaining to human health, the science must show that exposure to the substance above the level proposed in the regulatory action is causally linked to manifest bodily harm in humans. And with that, sir, I know we have a gentleman here that to testify on this, and I'd love to hear from him. Okay, so without objection, we'll go out of session. Chairman Todd, who is it you have here? Is it Mr. Mark Behrens? Yes, sir. I believe that's correct. Would you like to stand up or would you like to sit down? Which would you prefer?
Whatever the protocol.
Whatever you feel the most comfortable. You're welcome to stand there at the podium. Just state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. I am Mark Behrens. I'm here today on behalf of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Institute for Legal Reform, and I'm speaking in support of the legislation. In 3 minutes, I'd like to say what the bill essentially does is to require any time the state agency is going to adopt an environmental regulation, it has to be based on the best available science. That's why we call it the Sound Science and Regulations Act. This concept of requiring regulations to be based in sound science or best available science is the model that's used at the federal level. So our federal EPA, for example, in the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act, when they're looking at EPAs trying to make sure that we have clean drinking water in this country, their standard setting is based on best available science, which includes peer-reviewed science and supporting studies conducted in accordance with sound and objective scientific practices. That's what this legislation would do as well. Chemical risk evaluations under the Federal Toxic Substances Control Act also require best available science as the standard. And EPA has said that using the best available science in TSCA for regulating hazardous chemicals is vital to the credibility of the agency's effectiveness and the public's trust in agency determinations. I think that's a very important point, that when we're asking the state regulators to base their decisions on the best available science, that what we're doing is promoting the public trust in the regulatory agencies. So when the agency comes forward under this legislation, if it's enacted into the law, it's going to build the public trust because the public will know that they're not imposing regulations based on a whim, but based on science. And also, so again, this is the federal standard, and the bill is simply taking the standard that's used in federal environmental regulations and adopting that as a model for the Tennessee state agencies adopting similar legislation. How do you define best available science? What the bill says, again, following the federal model, is it's peer-reviewed, objective, and unbiased. Peer-reviewed in legitimate journals. There is a debate within science today that there are some journals like New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of the American Medical Association, Lancet, that are the gold standard for publications because they do things right. They have strong peer review editorial boards that offer feedback to authors, but there are also what are called predatory journals out there that publish pseudoscience or fake science. They're pay-to-play journals, and they are clouding scientific debate on issues of importance. And so what the legislation is trying to do, again, is have best available science based on credible studies in legitimate journals, not pseudoscience in pay-for-play fake journals. And if there's better language to get at that, we received some feedback just before the hearing from TDEC, and we're interested in working with them because I think on the basic concepts, there is going to be agreement. There's going to be agreement, I suspect, that agencies move on best available science and that we're trying to have that science come out of reputable journals, not junk science journals. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Chairman Todd, he's here on behalf of your bill. Would you like to ask for the first question? Well, I do thank you for coming and sharing that with us, and appreciate not only your effort here, but your research behind this to make sure that we're getting this right. And
But I don't have a specific question for you. I don't think there's anything else that you needed to cover. I think you've really covered the very basics of this, and I'll certainly yield to anyone else.
Do you have anything else you need to add?
No, not if there's any
Representative Fritz,
questions.
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much. What a great explanation. I appreciate that. You mentioned TSCA, and I read into the bill OSHA PELs because there was some exposure limit stuff in that. And so if that's a topic you're fluent in, would you talk a little bit about TSCA and what that means for those of us that may have forgotten over time, and what an OSHA PEL is perhaps, and why those would be important? And then I'll have one follow-up.
As long as it stays
Mr.
cordial.
Chairman, and thank you. I enjoyed your presentation. I used to live in Washington, D.C. and went to school at Vandy, and I would drive down, and the part through Oak Ridge was always my favorite part of the drive. But a PEL, and I'm not an environmental lawyer, so you may be able to educate me on some things, but a PEL is a permissible exposure limit. So what the government will do, EPA, on, say, drinking water, is they'll say, because in any chemical substance, the dose makes the poison. I mean, right? That's the principle of toxicology. The dose makes the poison, right? So you have one aspirin, it may help in a heart attack, it'll alleviate a headache. You drink 2 bottles of aspirin, you poison yourself, right? Alcohol. You have a glass of wine, it's not going to have any adverse health effect. You have 2 or 3 bottles, obviously health effects. You could even die if you have too much. So the dose makes the poison. So what the regulators often do is to try to set what is the level permissible exposure limit, or PEL, where they're saying, we know that above this limit, there's going to, that if there's exposure above a certain limit, that's going to have adverse health effects. Below that threshold, it's not going to cause a problem. It's like the 1 aspirin, 1 bottle of wine. So the government's trying to figure out where's that line and draw the line. That's the regulation. And what the bill is saying is when they decide this is where we're going to draw the line, it just needs to be based on sound science. That's it. Not based on a whim, not based on we think this is where it should be, but look to credible science. And best available science doesn't mean they need to go out and do new studies. Best available science could be a 50-year-old study if it's the only study out there, as long as it's the best that's available. So we're not asking the impossible of regulatory agencies. Again, this is the model that they're using at the federal level in all their agencies. The other thing I'd add is that the bill is not retroactive in its effect. So any agency decisions that have already been made in Tennessee are all grandfathered in. The bill's not going to require TDEC to go back and re-examine things that have worked for Tennessee for, in some cases, decades. So it's only saying we're going to look forward. And even there, it says if Tennessee is simply following the federal baseline standard, so if there's an OSHA PEL on a particular chemical, when Tennessee's following the OSHA standard, the bill doesn't apply there either. Why? And 2 reasons why: because there may be preemptive effect by the federal, but also because the federal agency is doing what we're asking Tennessee to do in this bill. So the bill wouldn't apply to those situations. The bill is only going to apply if the state agency is regulating in an area where there's no federal regulation yet, either because EPA's decided we're not going to regulate in this area, or they haven't gotten there yet. And that's happened in in other states with PFAS, a few PFAS substances, forever chemicals, some people like to say, where a few states have gone out ahead of the federal agency and adopted a safe water standard for some PFAS chemicals before EPA got there. So if it's a situation where the state agency is getting out ahead of the federal government, then the bill would apply and say, okay, if you're going to do something where the feds have chosen not to or haven't gotten there yet, that's fine. It just needs to be based on sound science. Or if the feds come in and say, our permissible exposure limit on chemical X is whatever it is, let's say 5 parts per billion, and Tennessee is going to cut that in half, then that's fine. They just have to justify why they're doing that. If they're going to have a standard that's much more stringent than the federal standard, okay, but it needs to be justified based on credible science. And that's all the bill's doing, and is a sound science bill. We think it makes common sense. It'll make the policies by the state agencies more scientifically defensible, and it'll enhance public trust in the agencies for those decisions.
Just one follow-up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Terrific answer. I appreciate that. The one thing that concerned me a little bit about the language was one of the agencies you mentioned as a peer review, the AMA. Because a few years ago, we got ourselves, the nation, I think, my opinion, that we got ourselves in trouble by following some AMA on COVID shots, just to be honest.
Yeah.
And so what in this legislation protects us? I agree that we should look at peer-reviewed journals and it shouldn't be the pay-to-play journals. I think all those are really good standards in existing science and build upon that because we're all standing on the shoulders of somebody who built the science before us, right?
That's right.
So what in the bill protects us from perhaps going down an erroneous path with a published journal that has taken a wrong approach, in your opinion?
It's a very good question. And, there are going to be those times. Science is not perfect. And a lot of times there's gray areas where there could be 2 journals that say chemical X causes cancer and 10 that say it doesn't. I mean, I do product liability litigation. That's what every toxic tort case is about. Cases usually don't go to court, whether it's over a pesticide or a chemical, when there's clear science that either says it does or doesn't cause cancer. It's usually when one expert says there's 3 studies that say it does and 10 that say it doesn't. And so those are decisions that the regulators are going to have to look at. And again, the bill is saying best available science. So it's not requiring perfect science. It's saying, let's look at the studies that are out there. There may be 3 over here or 10 over here. And we're going to look at those studies and see which ones are the most reliable, which ones are subject to replication, for example. We're going to test them according to the scientific method and then let the science dictate the result, as opposed to agency determinations based on whims or precautions that have no basis in the science itself.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Jones?
Thank you. I hope we have as much leeway as Representative Fritz in my
Yeah,
question.
as long as everybody stays in the proper decorum, we're good.
Thank you. And also, I'm wondering if the Department of Health and Department of Environment and Conservation are on the list, because I believe that they have concerns about this legislation. And I would like to get some clarity from the agencies if they're on the list after this. Thank you.
We'll check on that while you're asking
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you for being here, sir. Can you just give some clarity? Are you a scientist or do you have any background in science?
Representative, I do not. I'm an attorney.
Okay.
I've spent 30 years now working in public policy. I co-chair the public policy group at our law firm. And I've also spent a lot of that time in the product liability sphere where you come across issues of epidemiology and things like that. But
Okay.
no, I'm not a scientist.
All right. Well, thank you. So all of us on this committee, we receive letters from scientists and lawyers, including from Vanderbilt University, from the director for the Center of Asthma Research, Department of Medicine, Vanderbilt University School of Medicine. We received it also the former Chief Deputy Attorney General for Tennessee, an adjunct professor as well from Vanderbilt Law School, the William R. Keenan, Junior Professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences from Vanderbilt University, the Associate Professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences from Vanderbilt University, the Professor of Environmental Health, Division of Epidemiology, School of Public Health, the University of Memphis. The list goes on. Many scientists and lawyers who sent us a letter opposing this bill, who are scientists and who are lawyers. And I just want to ask you a little bit about that. One of the reasons that they gave, and it seems like some of the things that you were saying seem to conflict with the wisdom of our scientists and our medical and public health professionals here in Tennessee. They say that although we agree that regulations and health advisory should always be based on sound science, the wording of the proposed legislation will achieve the opposite. The legislation would likely have significant unintended consequences and would stop safety regulations and health advisories that protect children and adults across Tennessee. The legislation is tremendously broad in scope. It would affect rulemaking and health advisories from the Tennessee Department of Health, the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, as well as other state boards, agencies, and commissions. And so, what is your response to that? Because that is very troubling that we have all these experts in this field warning us that this bill is broad in scope and will in fact have the opposite intent of making decisions that are not grounded in science or facts or data, but will have a danger to public health and to the well-being of Tennesseans. Can you respond to that?
Yes, Representative. I saw the letter briefly, and I take issue with some of the things. I can't remember it verbatim, but there was some statement in there that said the bill would somehow require studies on humans, double-blind placebo studies on humans. There's nothing in here that says we're going to have to use humans as guinea pigs before we can regulate. I mean, that's preposterous. So I know that there was one statement in there that is simply just not in the bill. I think there may be some things in that letter that are simply there to cloud the debate or create confusion. The bill is not saying we can't regulate. It's not tying the hands of regulators. It is simply saying when they're going to regulate, it has to be based on the best available science. That's it. That's all the bill says. Now, and if it's in the human health context, they have to justify that they're doing this and it's going to have a proven human health benefit. So it's saying you can't just regulate a product out of existence based on a whim or an unfounded fear, but you have to actually have some showing that this is justified, scientifically justified, to require whatever the regulation is going to do. So I take issue in a sense. They have their opinions. I disagree with them. I don't believe everything is accurate the way it's phrased in that letter. But I'm not here to go through line by line and debate what they say. They're entitled to their.
Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to weigh because on one side we have some of the most respected scientists, academics, researchers from across this nation, and on the other side we have someone representing not science, you said, not a scientist, but who's representing the U.S. Chamber of Commerce corporate businesses. And so I'm trying to balance, who do I listen to? One side has a political argument. The other side are scientists who go through the scientific method of grounding the statement in research and data, statistics. And so my concern is, this is the part that really troubles me, is this is their warning. They say, we are concerned that the proposed legislation would require agencies to wait until after members of the public are sick or dying from toxic exposure before agencies are allowed to issue health advisories or rules about dangerous chemicals and substances. That would prevent our state government from protecting Tennessee's most vulnerable populations like children, pregnant women, and the elderly. And not only are these scientists, I want to be clear because you said you're a lawyer, a signatory on this letter is the former Chief Deputy Attorney General of Tennessee and multiple other attorneys on here. So we have both lawyers and scientists and researchers all saying this bill is too broad in scope and it will have an adverse impact on public health. And so that is where I have a pause about this legislation. And so would you respond to those specific points of concern brought by this group of academics, professors, and lawyers?
Sure. Thank you, Representative. First of all, I don't know who all these folks are. For all I know, some of them could be on editorial boards for some of these pay-to-play journals where they're making a living on doing this kind of thing.
I don't want to disparage. I don't want to disparage members of our community.
No,
but
I'm not.
please
I'm
continue.
saying
Okay,
I don't know who they are.
Hey, we're going
All
to
I'm
go back
saying is
to,
I don't know
I'm
who
going
they
to
are.
control
I don't
the
know if they're
conversation now, okay?
If they're paid experts or work for editorial boards of some of these journals, I don't know. So I'm not casting any aspersions. They may be very credible, upstanding people for all of them. I just don't know that. But what I would say is traditionally the science doesn't get out. We don't regulate ahead of where science is. So if you look at, some of the products that have proven over time to be dangerous, the regulations are after the fact. I mean, one of the worst products probably ever put in American workplaces was asbestos. It was put out there, right? Because at the time, it was seen as a miracle mineral. At the time, it was seen as a miracle mineral. Science later established that it causes cancer. And then it was regulated out of workplaces. The companies that made it were sued out of existence. So there are times there, but nobody could regulate it, that product, that mineral, until they knew it actually did something harm, right? Cigarettes have been out for decades. When the science developed to the point where it was understood that smoking, for a lifetime of smoking causes cancer, the Surgeon General put a warning label on it. 1964. They didn't do that in 1924 before the science was there to support it. But when the exposures were happening and it became clear that there was a human health effect, then the regulators stepped in both of those examples. And that's essentially what the bill would do. Now, if you want to say, We should be able to go in and ban products before there's any inkling that they're dangerous. That's it. That's going to be a philosophical debate, and I just disagree with it, but you're entitled to your opinion, obviously.
Representative Jones, you recognized.
Thank you so much. I have a two-part question. One, and I just want to get this on the record because the lobbyists that you all have for this bill came to my office and I was able to ask some questions behind the scenes. Are there any other states that have this legislation passed?
You recognize, Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, this is Tennessee, and I believe a bill has been introduced in West Virginia.
Passed.
Not passed. This is the first time Tennessee would be a pioneer.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Representative, may I just
Last question.
Thank
is it?
you.
Okay.
My last one.
Okay. Go ahead. You recognize.
I don't know if Tennessee would be a pioneer, but we would be a guinea pig. No other state has passed this. And so we're experimenting with the lives of our people and Tennesseans. And so they would be a guinea pig. No other state has passed this because they know that it would be harmful to their constituents. And so I hope that we can hear from the Tennessee Department of Health, the governor's Tennessee Department of Health, the governor's Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. I would like to hear from our state agencies to get clarity on this, because I think we should be able to hear from those who we've entrusted to enact these protections for Tennesseans. And I hope that we can hear from them, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Jones. You recognize, Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, although Tennessee would be the first state to pass this concept that regulations must be justified by best available science, again, is in the federal Safe Drinking Water Act. It's in the Federal Clean Water Act, and it's in the chemical risk evaluation process under the Federal Toxic Substances Control Act. So this is not an approach that was invented by the chamber or by the business community. This is a time-tested approach that's being used and has been used for quite some time at the federal level and is simply being imported into the state agency procedures as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Representative Alexander was on the list to ask a question, but she's not here. So that follows up. That takes no more questions to be asked, I don't guess, unless there's another
Appreciate
one.
the committee's time.
Thank you
today.
so much for
your
being here.
questions.
And Representative Jones, you asked if the Department of Health was here. Is there anyone from the Department of Health in the audience? Seeing none. Representative Martin?
Are we in session?
No, we're out of session.
Okay.
Did you say Grayson Carter? Grayson Carter is the only person who's on our list to be, from the Department of Health to be on this bill. So maybe in full committee, you can have someone. They're not here. I don't see them. Okay. So without objection, we'll go back into session. We're back into session. Chairman Todd, you're recognized on House Bill 896.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we are working with TDEC and some others to possibly have a tweak to this bill. I would point out that one of the checks and balances that we have in our process here, fortunately, is not only do we have the rulemaking process that involves the public, but we also have Government Operations Committee. So there's certainly opportunity for things to be vetted out even more clearly as a regulation or rule goes through. So, but because we're working with these others, I would move to roll this 1 week.
So without objection, we'll roll this bill 1 week. Next on our list is House Bill 0681 by Representative Jones. Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Could I roll that bill? 2 weeks?
We've had an objection. Well, where we are, parliamentary procedure that we're at now is Representative Jones has made a motion to roll the bill. We've had an objection on rolling the bill. We will be voting on.
I just wanted the witnesses to be able to come, so that's why I'm rolling it 2 weeks. Thank you.
We are voting on objecting to the motion to rolling the bill. Is that correct? To uphold the objection. So if you vote in favor, if you vote yes, you are in favor of rolling the bill. And if you, I'm sorry. Okay. If you vote yes, you're in favor of objecting. And if you vote no, you're in favor of no. Woo. of not rolling the bill. So all those in favor, Nathan, explain to us what we're doing. Without objection, we'll go out of session to let,
Thank you, sir. Nathan Witt. So the situation we're in is we've had a motion to roll the bill for 2 weeks and an objection to the motion. We now need to vote on whether or not to uphold that objection. A vote in favor is a vote to uphold the objection. A vote opposed is to allow the bill to be rolled.
thank you, Nathan. Without objection, we're back into session. All those in favor?
Mr. Chair, can I request a roll call vote?
We were already voting on it. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Chairman Todd, you're recognized. I'm sorry, the bill has been rolled. We rejected the roll in the bill, so we're setting now. So we need a motion to take this bill up currently.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, you're recognized.
Point of calling to ask for a roll call vote since
We've already we've already voted on this bill.
so I was like, I would like to make a roll call vote to roll it 1 week. And I'd like to have a roll call vote for that.
Okay. Do we have a second?
As I'm the sponsor of the bill, so I don't think you need a second.
You have to have a second in order to ask for a roll call vote.
Well, the,
Okay, he's got a second. Okay. We have a motion and a second for a roll call vote. All those in favor of rolling the bill for 1 week? He made the motion. He made the second. We have a motion before us and a second before us to roll the bill 1 week. All those in favor, Mr. Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 ayes, 3 nays, 1 present not voting.
Fails. The bill is back before us now, Representative Jones. You're recognized on House Bill 681. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion?
I have a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Only Democrat.
The bill fails for lack of a second. Next on the list is House Bill HB 716 by Representative Jones.
The only Democrat is left. The only other Democrat is left the committee.
Bill fails for lack of a motion. Okay, that is all of our calendar today. We will now go out of session and hear from Mr. Mark Miller. We're out of session. Mr. Mark Miller from Pacific Legal Foundation.
Representative Shaw. They just there's no other Democrat presence.
Hold on.
Democrat presence, so they killed the bill. Mr. Chairman,
Representative Martin, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have the motion, I have the floor right now. And I wanted like to
Representative
have
Martin, you're
order.
recognized.
I'd like to see us have the orders of the day.
The only other Democrat on this committee was out of the room.
Orders of the day.
The only other Democrat was out of the
Representative
room.
Martin, you're recognized.
What you did was wrong.
Representative
What
Martin,
you all did was
you are
Thank you. Excuse-
recognized.
And it is
Orders of the day.
Representative Martin.
Citizens in this committee, and it is wrong. And the only other
Mr. Martin, Pacific Legal Foundation is before us.
The only other Democrat was not
We are back in order. We're out of session. Mr. Mark Miller from Pacific Legal Foundation.
We're still out of order.
Representative Jones, you're not recognized.
Committee is out of order.
Mark Miller from Pacific Legal Foundation,
I'm not gonna
you are
continue-
recognized
I'm
to,
not gonna continue to act like this is okay and normal. We're not in order, so you can go ahead and hit your gavel, because that's a gavel, not a whip. This is not a plantation. I'm free. I don't act like some of these other folks on this committee. I am free, sir, and I'm so tired of the second-class treatment, because you come into a place where people like me are supposed to be treated as second-class citizens, Rusty Grills.
Representative Jones, you are out of order. You are out of order. You are out of order.
That is a gavel, not a whip, sir. So you can keep hitting it all you want, but you're not gonna hit me. So you can go ahead and be upset, but what you just did was wrong, and I'm not gonna act like it's normal. So today,
Representative Jones, you're out of order.
you're out of order.
Representative Martin, you are recognized.
You are out of order. You are, this committee is out of order. Code type legislation and legislature that we are objecting to, my constituents, we rolled Todd's bill with no issue. But two simple bills, you said we cannot roll it because the Democrat was not in the room. Because if one other Democrat walked out the room.
No.
It's ridiculous.
Well, no, I'm going to go back to the session. This is Mr. Miller. I want him to talk. Recognized with a specific legal foundation.
This committee is still out of order.
Representative Jones, please, you are not recognized.
I will not be silent. This committee is out of order.
Mr.
This committee is out of order.
We are going to go back into session.
This committee is out of order.
We're going to go out of we're back into session, and we are going to recess for 2 minutes.
From Bolivar who are seeing what happened today.
We are back in session now.
We are still out of order. We are still out of order.
Representative Todd, you're recognized.
We are still out of
Thank
order.
you, Mr. Chairman. Motion to adjourn. Without objection, we are adjourned.